All right, I'm ready whenever you are.
Okay, this is an interview with Representative John W. Greer for the Georgia Government Documentation Project. Interviewer Cliff Kuhn on May the 6th, 1987. So I usually start by asking people where they grew up and what their early political memories are within your family, political influences, so forth and so on early on. So why don't we just start there and go forward?
Fine, you just start off on whatever question you want.
Okay. Again, maybe you could start out by talking a bit about where you grew up, what kind of upbringing you had, and what sort of political memories you have from your youth, either from your family or beyond your family. Your parents, your father, anybody else?
You ready for me?
Sure.
Well, my name, like I say, is John W. Greer, and I'm a resident of Georgia, have been all my life. My parents they were residents all their life. And as far as we can remember, their grandparents were residents all their life in Georgia. My mother's people were from up around Hawkinsville, Georgia, which is toward South Georgia, but up toward middle Georgia. And my father was originally always from South Georgia. His family lived in a little town called Pearson, Georgia, when he was a young fella. And then later on, they moved over to Brunswick for a while.
Where is Pearson?
Pearson, Georgia, is in Appleton County. It's right below Douglas, Georgia, right below in the next county, below Douglas. And then they moved to Waycross, Georgia. And Daddy was really raised down there and was in the newspaper business when he was a young fellow, worked for the people at Waycross in the newspaper business. And then he got into the Chamber of Commerce business, which was beginning to be familiar in those days, 50 or 60 years ago. And he was secretary of the Chamber of Commerce for a while in Moultrie, Georgia, and moved over to Lakeland, Georgia when he got older and retired. He'd been in that Chamber of Commerce business in 2 or 3 towns in South Georgia, as well as Moultrie. And he retired and moved to Lakeland, Georgia when I was a very young fella. And Lakeland is a very small town called Lanier County. And it's right out from Valdosta, about 18 miles. And they finally grew up in Lanier County in Lakeland, and later on I got in politics there because it so happened that one of the former governors of our state, Ed Rivers, lived down that way for a while, and I got acquainted with him when I was a boy, a young fella, and a friend of mine from Homerville down in Musgrove and which was in the next town, Homerville, below Lakeland. We went to work with him, and when he got elected governor, and we got into politics, you might say, in that manner. And then we both had been in the legislature since that time from our respective counties. And I've been in the legislature from Lanier County, which was Lakeland, Georgia. Downing was from Homerville, Georgia, in the next county right below us. And I was in the House for 5 or 6 terms from Lakeland, and then was in the state Senate for 1 term from down there. And then about that time, I think we moved up here. I moved to Atlanta, and I've been living in Atlanta and working here ever since. And about several terms ago, I ran for the legislature here and got elected from this county, from Fulton County, and have been in the House here 6 terms, I believe it is. I believe I have been in the House and the Senate 1 term, and all of it together about 26 years this year, which I'm in the middle of now because the next session in January will be the second half of the session, a 2-year session in the House of Representatives in Georgia.
Well, let's backtrack a bit because we're going to cover a lot of territory. Do you recall any political discussions in the home when you were growing up?
Oh yes, to some extent. My father, as I say, he was secretary of the Chamber of Commerce in Moultrie, Georgia at one time, and it was a fairly good town he is now in South Georgia, and he of course knew all the people, you might say the political and business leaders, being in the type of work he was in. And I always remember discussion about politics because he and his family, while none of them that I remember were offhand ran for office or were elected to anything, but he was connected with, like say, the leadership of the city. And so I learned a lot about politics as a young man, at least learned to listen about it and knew something about it. And then later on, when he retired, when we moved over to Lakeland, Georgia, and I ran and got elected to the legislature from Lanier County, and have been in, except I was out quite a few years after we left there, and then I'd like to say I've been elected 6 terms here, which makes about 26 years in all that I've been a member of the House and the Senate, 26 or 28.
How would you characterize your father's attitudes towards politics?
Well, he was interested in it because he was in public work, you might say, as secretary of the Chamber of Commerce, and we in public work like that. And he understood it very well, and so I got interested more or less from listening to him or seeing things go on in my town where I lived, and got to liking politics. And then, like I say, when I got over to Lakeland, Georgia, I got acquainted with Ed Rivers, who was was governor of Georgia. He wasn't then, but I went with him through elections, and he got elected governor. I served in the governor's office. He was governor for 4 years, and I learned a good deal about it in those days. We were right in the middle of it, and so I've been in, you might say, since a fairly young fellow, since I was grown, been in politics off and on ever since. In the House, like I say, from Lanier County for many years, and then moved up here, and then elected 6, 7 terms here. And I was out for a while after I moved here. I didn't run, and then finally we had a formal system in Fulton County where you had 3 members of the legislature, and then we increased that, like we did all over Georgia about the legislature.
With the reapportionment.
With the reapportionment and all of that. So I got elected up here and have been in ever since.
In the 39th you're talking about?
In what?
In the 39th district.
It's the 39th district. That's the district I'm in. I'm county-wide now, in the last, since they changed the reapportionment, but I'm still a 39th district member, which I'm in the 2 county-wide districts here.
Right.
Ms. Barbara Couch and she's the other member from Fulton, got the 2 county-wide members. And so that's, I've been in the legislature in this situation for several terms here.
Right.
And my term will run through next year because that's the second half of the 2-year term.
Did you graduate from high school in Lakeland? Or where did you graduate from high school?
I graduated from high school at the Emory Academy down at Oxford, Georgia. I went to school down there when I was, I think when I was a sophomore. Daddy sent me up there to Emory Academy at Oxford because he had graduated from Emory College at Oxford way back in 1910, 9 or 10, somewhere along in there.
Okay.
He graduated from the college there, and I went there when it was a prep school. And after I went there and graduated from Emory Academy down at Oxford, Georgia, I went up to Emory University for 2 years, and then he had a stroke, and he had to retire more or less, and I quit and went to work, and I've been working ever since. I just had 2 years at Emory. I didn't finish.
You came back to support help out the family you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I had to help look after Daddy, and I have one brother who's younger than I am, 2 or 3 years younger than I, and no sisters, just the 2 of us were in the family. And I think my mother died when he had the stroke about along in there, and maybe just before that, and so we had to take care of Daddy, and we did, of course, because he was a very lovable man, and I've been working ever since.
So both of your parents were fairly young when that happened.
Well, no, I think Daddy was, when he died, I think he was in his 60s.
Really? Okay.
And Mother was between 50 and 60, I think, when she died, right at 60.
Okay. And that was roughly around 1930 or 31 you're
Yeah,
talking about?
long back in there, that's right.
Okay. What kind of business, what kind of work did you go into?
Well,
when
I
you
went
back
into,
home?
I was, like you say, was in, more or less after I grew up, I was up here and I was in politics, but I went into, I had had some interest in as a younger fella in a motor truck line, a small one. And when I got up here, I had to, before I came up here, I remember you had to go before the Georgia Public Service Commission to get a truck certificate. They handle all of that, still do. And I remember going before them and then to help get a little truck line that I was interested in. And after I sold out my part of it or whatever, I started representing people who needed certificates. And because you didn't have to be a lawyer over the Public Service Commission. And the lawyers used to get right hot at me because I'd appear over there and handle a case. I had fairly good luck with it over the Public Service Commission. And in a way, that's been, since I've gotten well grown and all up here, been my main profession, just like I like an attorney. And simple, except I can't handle legal things, but you can before the, you don't have to be a lawyer to go before the Public Service Commission here. And so I've been in that, representing truck lines ever since, still do.
And you're saying you started that when you went back to Lakeland, when you went back to Lanier?
No, I started that, no, I didn't start doing that until I got grown and was living in, and just before I moved, before I moved up here, I was doing that when I lived in Lakeland.
Okay,
Sure.
in the you're talking about the 50s or
Back in
so.
the 50s, I think, and
Okay.
then toward the 60s.
What about in the 30s when you went back home, when you left Emory,
When I
went
left
back
Emory,
home?
I went to work on the newspaper, the Cordele Dispatch, my recollection. It was a paper that was the paper in Crisp County,
Yeah.
Cordele, and I think, I know that was one of the places Daddy was Secretary of the Commerce for a while, Jim, and there's that's when I got acquainted with the newspaper people, and I was growing up by that time, and I went to Emory 2 years and then had to go to work, and I went to work for the Cordele Dispatch, and as a reporter for them, and I stayed with them for a year, 2 or 3, good while.
Okay.
Got into it, and then began to get into this motor truck business.
So even as a young man in your 20s, you were involved in this?
I was involved in, you might say, kin to politics in the newspaper business or whatever. You begin to study it and learn something about it and knew who was in office. And like I say, having worked as a young man in the governor's office when Rivers was governor, I got acquainted there first, you might say, and then been in it more or less ever since. Whether I should have or not, I like it and I've been in it.
Right. Well, before we get to your involvement with Ed Rivers, maybe we could ask what your memories and impressions and attitudes towards Mr. Roosevelt were, and then later on Eugene Talmadge. But
Towards Mr. Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, when you mean Franklin D. Cohen, when Mr. Roosevelt began to get, haven't been, he was governor of New York, wasn't he, for a while, and then, but when he ran and was elected president, I was a strong Roosevelt man. Of course, he was a Democrat like a lot of us are down here and have been in Georgia, and we all had I began at that time when he started running, I think I was on a committee from my county and stayed on Democratic layout because we supported him all along, and I was just tremendously fond of him, and I had the opportunity of going with Rivers was governor, and I think when Roosevelt was president, maybe the first time, and I remember going down to Warm Springs to meet him with Rivers to see him, and I remember getting to go in and they introduced me to him, and I can well remember him and then I, of course, didn't stay through the whole business meeting that they had, or a political meeting, but I met him more than once, and then had the opportunity over the years. I knew one or two of his children. James Roosevelt was he's still living, I think. I knew him. He'd come to Georgia a good deal. Some of us, because I lived here and worked in the capital, we'd meet him here or something and take him somewhere. And there was another member of the family that I knew slightly. trying to remember which one it was, but offhand it just don't hit into me right now. But I was always a great Roosevelt man. Because I thought he was, I think, and no doubt in my mind, that he was one of the greatest presidents we've ever had because he came along in bad times. And I think when he became president, he had to start a good bit of innovation in pushing through Congress and help the general public in various ways, not only just like pensions to old people or something like that, or folks who couldn't work or were crippled, but he in a broad range of things that Roosevelt came and pushed and put in when he became president, no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, in this state, probably the best known opponent of Mr. Roosevelt was Mr. Talmadge.
Well, old man Gene, yeah, there ain't no doubt about it. And I'm reading a book at home about Gene Talmadge. Somebody gave me the other day, and I knew him well, and he was against Roosevelt way in the old years, because I was on the other state side from Gene. Rivers and all of us on one side, and Gene Talmadge and his bunch on the other, and it was knocked down, drag out fighting long. And old man Gene, I always sort of liked him. He was a rip snorter kind of a fella. He and Herman and I are good friends now. I'm a little older than Herman, his son. And but old man Gene was a pistol ball. There's no question, man. He didn't like Roosevelt. He wasn't a New Dealer, you might say. Gene wasn't. He was more of the older school because he'd taken out after or against Roosevelt. But I knew him pretty well.
Would you ever see Talmadge on the stump? Eugene Talmadge?
Oh, sure. I used to see him on the stump, go to the meetings when we were against him and whatever. He was a great campaigner. He'd get on that stand and make us speeches and hell raised off from here back. He was a pretty good speaker, like you might say, a country type politician or any type of politician that could speak before a crowd. He'd lay it out, and he had a strong support among people, working people, a lot of other folks at old man. Big farmer, you know. So I used to hear him speak around about quite a bit in those old days.
What would cause you to go to a Talmadge rally?
Well, I wanted to hear him for one thing, and that Downing and one or two of us would go because we wanted to see what he was saying, because our side would be opposed to him on something, you know, and we'd try to keep the best track we could of it. Of course, there were newspaper reports and all, but we wanted to see who was there and the people we knew in Georgia, and whether he was taking them away from our side or the other way around. We used to go to him fairly often.
So this was before Ed Rivers became governor. This was when Rivers was still Speaker of the House, or?
It was when he was Speaker of the House, I believe it was. He was Speaker and Gene was governor.
Right.
And they didn't always get along together.
Okay. Were you on Rivers' staff by that point?
I was.
When he was Speaker of the House? Or what was your connection with Rivers at that point?
I was on his staff. I worked for him there as a member in the House, in his staff, yeah.
So you were...
Part of the time, yeah, I was.
You were about 23, 24, 25 years old or so?
Well, let's see. I'm 76 or 77 now. I had to be about in the 20s, on up in there.
Okay. And what attracted you to Rivers?
Well, I think I was attracted to him because he was about as likable a man as you ever met, leaving the politics out of it. Friendly, nice fella, pleasant, good smile, would treat you nice, you get along with him, you just liked him because of his nature. And when I lived in Lakeland and was interested in politics, and of course, I got acquainted with him, and I got him on his staff and all that. In fact, we moved over there because he knew my father, and he got Daddy to come over there. My recollection was, and do some work for Lakeland just before Daddy had a stroke. And that's why we were over there. And I got acquainted with him and knew him from then on, and was very fond of him.
So that goes back to maybe the early 30s? Or?
Yeah, whenever it was that he started, whenever he was Speaker. And then when he was governor, Roy Harris was Speaker. Good part of that.
Right. Now, I know when he was Speaker, he had some battles with Mr. Talmadge. Do you remember any what they might have been about? Any of those conflicts?
Well, my answer to that is that my recollection, he was more of a Roosevelt type liberal, Rivers was. That is, he was trying to do something for the general public, and Gene was more of a conservative, old Rock River type. And they differ on questions of what should be done for the public. Like, well, use the word pensions is not too good a word, but things that you can do for old people that you try to pass legislation for, and things of that nature. And Rivers was for those things. My recollection, some of it Talmadge was against my recollection. He wasn't what you'd call a liberal, and Rivers was more of a what you'd call politically a liberal at that time.
Do you remember things like, the PWA or the WPA or emergency relief and how?
Yeah, because that was Roosevelt's things, and they'd come in Georgia like the one in every state, and Rivers' crowd was in favor of them because those things let people go to work under them. Took them off the poor folks' roads, you might say, and let them get something to do and all that. That was New Deal stuff, was a term for it. Wasn't that? That was one the New Deal, and it was one term they used under those things. And Rivers was, and so was other. And Ellis Arnold was one who followed Rivers. He was in the legislature when Rivers was governor and became governor himself. And people like that were on one side, and the Talmadge crowd were on the other. And for a good long while that way it worked. And it was more or less of a liberal Roosevelt type
against the Talmadge
crowd in Georgia, and Talmadge was more or less on the other side.
Do you remember Roosevelt's opposition to Walter George and that whole race? The Walter George Lawrence Camp race for senator?
Yeah, I sure do.
Okay.
I sure as hell do. And our crowd was sort of Lawrence Camp, because that was more of the Roosevelt side, And George, old man George, was a great fella, and I knew his children still. And he was more conservative.
Well, what other kinds of memories do you have of that race?
Well, I think, didn't he beat us in that race?
Walter George won.
Walter George won. My recollection, Lawrence Camp made a race, but he didn't win. A lot of us were on Lawrence Camp's side because they were against George, who was more or less of a conservative, but a good, great man. I knew him slightly, knew some of his children later, and that was about the side of it, my recollection of it offhand.
Okay. Now, when you joined Ed Rivers' staff, what kind of duties did you have at that time? You were a secretary at some point.
Yeah, I think I was a secretary. I think. And then I think I had some other state job, not along with being a secretary in the governor's office, but I remember I got into one of the other departments for some reason. I forgot just the details. My memory's gotten bad on me the last 2 or 3 years, not as good as it used to be. But I was in the state government there for a while and worked in some other department.
Okay. How would you describe the General Assembly at that time, in the late 30s, say, either before or during Rivers' administration?
Well, I would say it was in a turn from old conservatism to more liberal Roosevelt type administrations, and through the General Assembly they would pass a lot of these bills, not all of them, that would more or less help people go to work, help people get this and that, and more of the liberal type than the old crowd was. And there was a change in it long about that time, began to change, because during the Depression years and all back in there, the people in their county, the members' counties and all needed something. A lot of them needed work, this and that, so the legislature more or less went into WPA kind of stuff and the other things that more or less came out, I think, out of the Roosevelt regime and began to spread into not only our state, but a lot of others, particularly these southern states. And that was where there was a difference at that time between, say, the old Talmadge crowd and the others.
Who were some of the leaders that you can recall from that era, from like the late 30s or early 40s?
Well, I mentioned Roy Harris. Fred Hand came along a little later than that, after that. Ellis Arnold was one of them who came along up with the Rivers crowd. I ought to be able to name 24, and my memory's not,
Right.
I ought to remember them now, right now, but I don't offhand
Okay.
place them. They'd come to me if I could see the names, I could tell you about them.
We may do that later on. Now, I know you entered the House for the first time, I believe I have 1943 or thereabouts.
I believe it was 43. I was clerk of the House in 39 and 40. And I think Roy was Speaker, I'm not sure, I believe he was then. And I got elected clerk of the House, ran for clerk. They got me into it, and I ran for clerk. Was elected and served 1 or 2 terms as clerk, and in 43, when I first went to the legislature, was 43 or 44, right in there.
Right. Well, what caused you to decide to run, and what do you remember about that first campaign?
Well, I was in politics, and when I was clerk, and then for some reason, after I was clerk of term or 2, I could see the governor maybe was going out, and another crowd would be coming in, and maybe elect somebody else as clerk. And
right. Arnold came in 42.
Did Arnold come in 42? Well, he wouldn't have pushed me out as clerk, my recollection was, but I decided to run for the legislature in my county, and we had a friend of mine, and not a fairly close neighbor, Tom Miller, who was in the House. His brother, Lint Miller, owned a big hardware store and half the county farms. They were nice people. I still know a lot of them. And Tom was in the legislature, but he didn't work too hard. And I had to run against him because all the counties, little counties, even had 1 member then. There wasn't a member from like 2 or 3 spreads like later. And I remember running against Tom Miller for the House. And my recollection is he and I got 450 votes apiece on the count. And neither one of us would ask for a recount, because a recount will always legally and honestly vary 2 or 3 votes, because the counters was this ballot done right, or was it scratched wrong, or whatever, and throw out 1 or 2 maybe legally and honestly. And so we didn't want to ask for a recount, neither one of us. And it went on for about a week or 10 days, and I was out campaigning to beat the band. And Tom, for some reason, I'd surprised him, I think, because they thought they had it won when we started in it. And they'd had it for a good while, and owned about half the county, and good people. And so he dropped out. He might have beat me in the runover because they had the money and everything you could have put to it probably. But anyway, he dropped out, and I got elected that first time. And then I had 1 or 2 other races, and 1 or 2 or 3 times when I was from there that I had no opposition. So I didn't get beaten him over there. And then when I later on moved off of here, and in the House for a while, and then ran here. But that first race I was in, it was something like we had a tie vote. Luckily, Tom finally just got out and decided he'd quit. And I just won the runover because I didn't have any opposition. He just retired.
Were there any particular issues in that race? Or?
Oh, let me see. Nothing except some probably county issue. I don't offhand remember any big issue.
Okay. And
offhand, unless he and I were, and I don't remember this for sure, we were on different sides and whoever was governor or whatever right then.
Yeah.
I think Arnold was, maybe back then, he and I were good friends. Ellis, Arnold and I are still good friends. See him every now and then.
Okay. Maybe you could describe something of the nature of a campaign at that time.
Oh, in a little county, Lanier County, you went to see everybody in the county. You didn't miss them because small county, they all, if you didn't go and ask them to vote for you, they'd say, well, he don't want me to vote for you. He hadn't said a word to me. They said, and then asked me to. So you had to campaign among everybody. And every family, everybody that had a vote, you went to see them. That was tough campaigning in those days because it was a fairly small county. You knew you could see everybody. You could go over the whole county. And so went to see everybody in the county every way you did. And then years later when I moved up here and was running or got elected up here, somebody said, oh, you're going to have a tough time running up here when you used to run in that little county. And after I got elected here the first time, I forgot I had opposition, but I won pretty good. I said, oh, heck no, it's a whole lot harder down in a little county like that. Up here, you run county-wide, it ain't just a personal thing between every member, every voter in the county, as big as this county is, you know. Lord, we vote something over 300,000 people in a big county like Fulton. So it wasn't it was a lot of work in going around all the areas of the county and going to meetings and making a talk, and every way you could campaign with this group or that group or whatever, talk to the labor people. They had organizations here, still do of course, and other bunches, and the black people run and get down and work with the black folks that voted, and they've got more and more in the vote, you know, and I used to have pretty good luck with them, and it's just a lot of hard work in it, but it wasn't as personal as it was back down in Lanier County, where the question of what's my next door neighbor, is he gonna vote for me or for somebody else? It's close.
And plus, the roads I bet weren't so great either.
The what?
The roads that you travel on to meet everybody at that time.
Oh, no, and no, it wasn't Lakeland. One of the big things down there was paving the roads. We had didn't have any paved roads when I came up in Lakeland, my recollection. The first road we ever paved that got paved was to Valdosta. Lakeland to Valdosta, which is where everybody went to town. It's about 18 miles. So we finally, that was the first road we worked on and got it paved. And after that, we had like the governor in was my friend, and the other governor came in. I'd go get we didn't have a damn mile of paved road. And I went to everybody, the highway people, whoever was commissioner, whatever, the governor, and I'd get them to give us, in those days you'd get, Jim Gillis was chairman of the highway department, a director for a while.
Right.
And I'd go to old man Jim and get 2 miles out of it, because our crowd had more or less put him in. But I'd go out to the county line and get the 2 miles paved back toward Lakeland. I wouldn't go to Lakeland and pave out, because I was afraid I couldn't get any more. I'd go and get 2 miles and have it paved from the county line back toward town, then we could gradually, if we could fill it in, you know. Oh, it was something in those days trying to get a piece of paved road. We paved every damn one of them, all of them in Lanier County that ever went anywhere. To every town you went, we paved from the Ray City into Homerville and to up Ray City in Nashville and then to Valdosta and everywhere you could think of. We had to get paved those roads out from there going other places.
Well, how would you go to Jim Gillis and get that 2 miles?
Well, we'd go in there and talk to him, tell him we needed it, and that if he needed any votes or anything, and if I was in the legislature then, we'd say what you got coming up. And the highway department was always needing money then. That was before they had large amounts over, and they'd have problems getting money to put on roads, you know. Enough appropriation, and so we'd go to them and say, now what you got coming up in the legislature? They'd always have some bill, and the question of trading with them and getting, and if they were on your side politically, it was a whole lot easier, and we were friendly with Jim Gillis most all the time. He was a fine old man, good fella. I'd get 2 miles out of him and go back another week or 2 or so, a month or so, get 2 miles more, and I got those roads paved pretty well, beginning in paved toward town. Finally, we finished them on into town, you know, it wasn't as hard.
Now,
It took some politics in those days to get something done sometimes.
I bet. Was Jim Gillis the highway commissioner at the time that there was some sort of a hubbub about that during the Rivers administration, or was that What do you recall about that? There was something concerning highways.
Oh, yeah, but I don't believe it was Jim, but Lent Miller,
The same Lynn.
Laker, fine high-class man. Rivers got him to run the highway department for a while, but Lent didn't get in any mess. And then I forget whether the mess wasn't Rivers' mess, it was, I forget what the hell it was. It might have been before Jim Gillis, I think, came into it, maybe. I don't remember the details offhand, and I hate to try to say, because I don't remember exactly what it was, just what the hoorah was.
Okay, okay. So Lint Miller was the highway.
Lent Miller was, W.L. Miller was the highwayman on the
Right.
part of River, and he was a fine, good, honest fellow, man, Lent was.
Okay.
But everybody was fighting for roads in those days. Lord, you just can't imagine the counties in Georgia didn't have any paved roads to speak of. The whole state needed road paving everywhere. And that was really the beginning, you might say, of the spread of paving all throughout this part of the country.
So with all this competition for roads, that meant that the highway department was naturally very politically.
Oh, very political. You damn right it was. Yeah, Lord. We had I remember this, we used to have to work well, down there when the original, we didn't have any paved road to get us to Atlanta. We could go part of the way, it'd be paved, and some it wouldn't be, and finally we had to work on help everybody else. They'd help us, but you get all the roads paved up through Nashville and then on up, and then of course finally the main highway through the middle of the state, we'd have to go over to Adel and hit it there and come straight on up to Tifton and straight on up on the highway. All that was, getting road paved in those days, that was a big business. There's a lot of doing.
So you're saying it was a pretty big effort to get to Atlanta by
Oh,
road.
yeah, it was. We seen 250 miles right at from Lakeland to Atlanta. And before the roads all got pretty well paved, it was a good long trip. And then finally we got them all paved, and you could get to Atlanta in 5-6 hours with the car.
Now you entered the legislature then in the early 40s as a
Yeah, in the early 40s, 43, you're right along.
defeated Tom Miller, or he withdrew.
Yeah, Tom withdrew. I didn't beat him. He withdrew. Didn't make the run over. He got out.
Now
Well, that
what-
was sure good luck for me too, cause I expect he'd have beat me in the run over.
Huh. And then once you got up here, what committees did you decide to get on, or what issues did you get involved with?
I got on I think one of the first things I got on was a committee that had to do with highway work, one of them.
For the reasons that we talked about.
Yeah, and then I remember getting on insurance committee.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got on one committee that had to do with welfare work. I'm trying to think what it was to help poor people and which committee it was. I don't know. You may have a list of them down there.
Appropriations?
I don't remember, but I was on
Yeah.
appropriation once.
I know that. Okay.
Wait a minute. I was on insurance,
Rules.
when I rules, ways and means. And then, well, after I came up here and when we got into the model business and with the rapid, when this county had, we had to spread model and really do some building on built the train, finally, the
Yeah.
model train, and before that, the buses and all. And I've been chairman of the model overview committee for quite a few years. I still am. Of course, we got it in pretty good shape, you know.
Well, we'll get back to MARTA. I want to spend
Oh.
some time talking about MARTA. Okay, well, I know that two things that you're connected with back in the 40s are the secret ballot and election reform.
Yeah, secret ballot and election reform. I had a good row. I remember passing that secret ballot bill was another knockdown drag out.
Well,
But finally,
why don't you start to tell me that story about how that came about and how you got interested, and then about the fight itself.
Oh, well, the reason I got interested in it is in my county, where I first, and then I heard it from people in other counties, a certain crowd would be running the election. And they could pull the votes in right sharp on you sometime, one way or the other. And I'd forgotten what we had in Lanier. Frank Howell, who was big family there, and he was chairman of the commissioners, and they were sort of running things like election and all for a while. And then some row came up, and I remember getting involved in it and trying to run them straight. And we finally passed state. I was involved in with others in the secret ballot bill, and we have it. Now I forget what year we did it, but that was one of them. The secret ballot bill, and one other one you mentioned there.
Well, just generally election revisions.
Yeah, election revisions of various kinds, make where everybody a good, straight, honest election. I worked on those.
Okay, maybe you could describe what elections were like in your county or other counties before that time.
Oh, well, they were regular elections, and they'd be at the courthouse, and then in 2 or 3 places else around the county, depending on how big the county was. We had an election in Lakeland at the courthouse, and then we had one election place across the river, which was out from Lakeland. We might have had one more up at Mud Creek, way up in the top part of the county for a while. They hunted you about something?
No.
And we, in elections, there used to be the people that, I forget just how they do it, but now and then those that were really skinning you, if they were on the election committee or handling the election, they could push that vote in there somehow. And finally we got to help pass that secret ballot bill that fixed it where you couldn't mess it up or steal them, or everybody could vote their secret ballot. But before that, before they were secret ballot, people that ran things in the county would get the average fella who maybe needed something out of them or this or that, and they'd have to go in there and tell them how they were voting and show them and rig it up somehow, at least talk them into voting for them. Hear about Nathan do it. Finally, we made it a pure secret ballot after 2 or 3, 4 years fighting. Several of us were involved in that.
Who else?
I'm trying to remember who else. I think, well, I forget what years it was we passed it, unless you've got some dates there.
I think it's the early 40s.
In the early 40s somewhere. That was one of the first things I got into when I got elected, was on the ballot, secret ballots and all that kind of stuff.
Did you used to see this go on with your own eyes?
Oh yeah, we'd see it in our county and knew it was going on before they had the secret ballot, and they'd go in there and lock the door and count them. One thing, some counties would, and they'd get away with it, mess it up that way. And before it became secret ballot in public county, and then they couldn't steal it square. Nobody could. But a group that was running it could, at times, could rig up an election that way to some extent.
What prompted you personally to take this on as one of the first things that you did take on?
Well, I think it was because I got mad with some of the crowd in the county that I thought was rigging up the damn election one time. I forget, it wasn't Lent Miller, well, it might have been some of his crowd, but whoever it was, whatever it was, I just got mad as hell with them and decided we were going to put an end to that. And this other counties, places were having the same type of argument, so I got busy with some folks and got in the state legislature, a legislative bill that had to do with the election and secret ballot and stuff like that.
Are you referring to an election that you were running in that they were trying to fix? Or?
I've forgotten whether that was probably, well, because I started running in about 43 there, and it might have been in one of those elections too.
Okay.
Could have been. That's hard for me to pin that right which year, what there, but that was it.
Now, you say it took 2 or 3 years and that it was a knockdown, drag-out fight. Maybe you could talk about the opposition in the legislature.
To the secret ballot?
Yeah.
Well, I could be wrong in saying this, but knowing who various people were, it could have been some of the old Talmadge crowd that had been in their counties and helped rig elections and stuff. It wasn't necessarily a Talmadge thing, but I guess it was more the older Talmadge crowd that was opposed to opening up, I mean, making a secret ballot where it was fair to everybody. I'm guessing, without naming them as Talmadgites, but it's some of that general bunch that want to hold it like it was. Particularly those in the counties all over Georgia. See, we got a lot of damn counties in Georgia, 150 odd counties, haven't we? And it used to be 159 even, and then I think they consolidated one or two. And anyway, a lot of the old crowd that were running these counties, particularly a lot of these little counties, they had them rigged up. They're going to keep that ballot where they can steal those elections.
Okay, so how did you push it through that particular one?
Well, we got people who got in the legislature. The papers were supporting it, of course, and doing it, straightening up the elections and all that, and finding people in the legislature. I think we just got more people that wanted to get it in a better route than it was, even do away with the crowd in their own county that might have been stealing it or whatever, and wanted to pass a ballot and give everybody a fair chance on the vote and make it an open thing, secret ballot and open count. And that's what it just grew around the state.
Okay. And it took a couple, 2-3 years to get there.
Yeah, my recollection, it took 2 or 3 years for everybody that got together on it. A lot of us finally got in. We introduced a secret ballot bill, more than 1 year to finally get one through. No doubt about that, just like the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, I was going to bring
We used
that
to
up.
have a lot of hell hooping and hollering about the Klan when I was a younger fella, and I knew people that were in it, and they'd parade all over Georgia and in various towns and cities and have those damn masks on and beat up the niggers and the poor black people catch hell, and some whites, and it was a damn disgrace. So I just introduced a bill, and I forget, one, two folks helped me with it, start, and then more, a bill to unmask the Klan, where they had to, couldn't parade or have an open meeting in public with that mask on. They'd have to hold it private. My recollection was we had to write a hard fight to get that anti-mask bill through. We did.
Why don't we go back and talk about your earlier observations or association with the Ku Klux Klans going back to Lanier County days or earlier?
We had no bad Klan in Lanier County, in my recollection. They had one there, but with a small county and everybody knowing everybody else, and where they were in and out, my recollection was they had a Klan there at one time, but it wasn't as bad as it was in counties like, say, Lowndes or Nashville, Berrien County, or up in Pearson, other bigger counties, where they could more or less get away with it and get behind those masks and all. We didn't have it much, but we had it around the state. It wasn't only a local matter. My county had less problem with it than a lot of them. Hell, at one time it was spreading pretty bad about the Klan trying to take over every damn thing and scare everybody into this and that, threatening the blacks and everybody else.
And how big an influence, or what kind of influence would you say the Klan had in politics at either the local or state level?
Well, I'd say that in some counties, they had pretty good influence, because people didn't know who they were, and they'd have a pretty good bunch, and they could get all their crowd behind a certain man or a certain bunch, whatever it was for, and could do pretty well with them. And you'd find it out maybe later. But it was getting worse and worse as far as parading and raising hell, and I think that back in those days, the emergence, if you use that word, of the black people as citizens was beginning to grow a little bit. Smart niggers would take the position, I mean, good thing was that they weren't, they couldn't vote at one time. I forget what year that was changed, whether it was before my time or what the blacks.
In the 40s.
In the 40s, wasn't it? That we finally, I was in that too, they said that they live here and they got a right to vote too. There was quite a bit of opposition around people that didn't want to vote in every county.
What kind of things are you recalling as you're talking about that? What sorts of things are you recollecting about that very thing?
Well, I think the Klan back in those days, or maybe before, without, they were, one thing that made it somewhat easier to help get rid of them was, I think, a lot of them were pretty well after the blacks when they wanted to in their county, or they'd get mad with some blacks or something, and want to beat up some or whatever. And that had something to do, I think, with the leaders in the black community, or the more prominent or good people, not statewide necessarily, but in this county that were trying to push for their right to vote. They were citizens, they paid taxes a little on whatever they happened to own.
I know that in 1946, I guess, there was a large registration drive.
Maybe that was when it was.
Do you remember that?
I remember it was heavy along those times.
I mean, here in Atlanta, it was very heavy, but in other parts of the state too, right after the war.
Right after the war, it was all over the Georgia. It began to grow, and the fact that the blacks had taken part in the war and everything else, they were getting to be, people were beginning to say, well, they ain't just a bunch of damn niggers anymore. They're citizens. We got to treat them right. It just sort of began to grow.
And you're saying as that grew, opposition also grew.
Yeah, some opposition to it grew, and like I say, some of the general type of Klan people would be those who would, without making it each individual, would be the kind that were more or less against the black vote, for one thing. A lot of other people didn't want to vote too, probably, but it took a while for that to get through. A lot of people hammering at it all around, introducing the bill.
How would you personally learn about Klan activities, or?
Oh, well, back in my younger days when they were active, you'd hear about them all around. And they'd parade around. I don't offhand remember seeing any parade in Lakeland, but I remember when I was a young fella seeing them somewhere else in one of the other towns, parade down the middle of town, all with masks on.
I was talking more about the
damn police would go in front of them and have them down the street.
I was talking more, I think, about the 40s, when these events you're talking about took place, when the anti-mask legislation, and how would you find out about Ku Klux activities?
Oh, well, you'd have friends that knew and that belonged to it or something, they'd tell you they couldn't keep it a secret, because they'd be talking to other people, and folks would know who was in it, and it got, people began to get more and more knowledgeable about it along. Okay. And then when you can do some bad things in certain places, not necessarily in any one town or county, wherever they did, that'd get spread. The press would, you got to say that the big papers in Georgia, as well as, I guess, a bigger part of the smaller papers, eventually took out after the Klan.
I know the papers here did.
Yeah, they
Macon
did.
Telegraph did.
Macon Telegraph, damn right, they did. Yeah, Lord, I knew those. What was his old man's name that was the editor?
Anderson?
Old man Will Anderson.
W.T. Anderson.
W.T. Anderson. And I knew some of that family. Yeah, they took out after them. And they were, at that time, they were one of the strongest, you might say, progressive paper crowd in Georgia, that about trying to change things and more or less upgrade the various things in the citizenship layout. It's good, strong. It's always been a good paper. Those Andersons, the old man Bill Anderson and W.T., they did it.
Now, I have heard rumors, and I don't know anything about this, but that there were people here who more or less became informers about the Klan to the Democrats, to people in the Democratic Party, to other people. And did you ever hear of anything like that? People who sort of, and not necessarily infiltrated, but kind of reported on Klan activities and kept the Democratic Party?
Oh, well, it was not necessary. You got to remember that in those years, in the 40s,
right,
long in there, back before that,
yeah,
there wasn't many Republicans.
Right.
The Democrat Party was the big party. It was split up into like you said, the Rivers crowd on one side, the Towns crowd others, all of them were Democrats, because that's
Sure.
why there wasn't any Republicans enough to mount anything in those years. So the Democratic Party, the information just would get spread all around from first one fella to the other. And the paper's hammering on something like that pretty steady. And the Klan, that was about the way it worked.
Had you ever been asked to join?
Join the Klan?
Yeah.
Not to my ever recollection. No, I don't think. I think that I never was formed. We didn't have any big Klan in Lanier County. I'm trying to remember who might have belonged. I probably knew at that time. It wasn't too strong in our county, little county, and everybody knew everybody else. But I never was asked to join one, and that's much of my recollection. I'd have sure that I was always against it. I'd have told them no. Something I got mad with, whatever it was about. All things that I'd get into, other people to get into, wasn't because we were any more morally stronger than other folks, it's just because we'd get mad about something, probably it having as much to do with it as anything else. Hell, that damn thing ain't right, and they ain't treating us right, we're gonna change it.
What are you referring to along that lines with regard
Well,
to?
no special thing, just the things that we changed, like the secret ballot and the Klan thing and other things that weren't really helping the general public, were more or less not too good. People are just gradually more and more beginning to get pissed off out of it.
So there wasn't, you don't recall any particular thing that got you mad at them like that?
Not any just one thing, no, not offhand. No ill treatment by them or anything like that as an individual.
Do you remember the lynchings in Monroe, Georgia?
The what?
They were
Lynching?
in Monroe, Georgia, 1946.
Was it in 40s, wasn't it? They had
Yeah.
some lynchings
Yeah.
out there, sure as hell. I'm beginning to, yeah, up in Monroe, wasn't it?
I was thinking all these things are sort of happening all around the same
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, all those things had some effect on the straightening out of those things that were not too good, on changing them and through the legislature or the general public's wishes or whatever.
Where do you think, in your own personal background, you got whatever it took to, say, push for the anti-mask legislation? What do you think in your own personal makeup, your background?
I think it was my daddy's raising, who was a good, honest man for things that were right and wrong. I think it's things that he would tell me as long as he lived. Help do it, and then I'd read about it and hear from neighbors. And fortunately, it's either what Daddy taught me or told me about or would let me know about and all when I was growing up, as well as the fact that my feelings began to get more or less on that kind of basis. And I'd say he was responsible for knowing what kind of fella he was and the things he was for and the things he wouldn't be for. He sure wouldn't have been, he wasn't a Klansman, hell no, or nothing like that.
Right.
And it was, I think that was probably where it started with me. And then I learned things, and things, you'd see things in politics where the crowd that maybe beat us, I'd get mad as hell with them about something, and we'd try to straighten something out. It was things that were not just like you say, because I was so hell-bent on having everything right, and sometimes you'd be mad with some crowd about something, and you'd take out after for that reason, and maybe have to say. So I ain't claiming that it was any great, too big or any big moral movement on my part altogether. There's various reasons.
That's a part of it all, that's for sure.
Part of it, that's right. So,
Now, tell me how that anti-mask bill got pushed through the General Assembly.
through the General Assembly, well, I remember when I wrote it, and I try to remember who signed it with me to start with. One other member, I believe.
Osgood Williams, or?
I forget whether Osgood was in there that session in there or not, but if he was there, he did, probably. But I remember, so I can't think of the name offhand, but I remember putting the bill in, and I'd have a hell of a, I couldn't get it out of the committee to start with, they'd keep it down, and it took 2 or 3 years to finally hammer it out through public push and every other damn thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
public push meaning,
Meaning the papers and meaning the preachers, I reckon, and people who were mad with the Klan and other people in various places. And just a movement that got underway because we were pushing it. And I just introduced the hell out of it. And like I say, it took, what, 2 or 3 years before I passed it.
how'd you get it out of committee?
Well, I forget exactly. Trading it out, getting people to be for it, getting the papers for it, the general public, and them going to committee meetings and trying to see who might vote this way or that on it, if they could get a vote or whatever. It just was a day-by-day push.
That met with considerable opposition in the legislature.
Oh yeah, we had some opposition, sure. A lot of it was, you didn't know exactly where all that opposition was coming from all of a sudden, and then you finally find out who was, and who gradually it took the things like that to get through the legislature. It wasn't just called me or any other fellow that introduced it because it was good right. It took a gradual build-up of public sentiment behind something like that to finally get it through. You see, they could stop things in a committee that wouldn't get public too damn much about who actually did it or how they did it. And finally, it just took more of a continuous pushing and to get finally over to the people, I reckon, that this thing probably ought to be done. Or we ought to get rid of that damn crowd, the Klan or whatever. It wasn't any one fella just, like you say, getting out and being a big hero on his own.
Yeah.
Much it was just pushing at it all the time. Like I say, those bills, the secret ballot and the Klan thing, and I know of other bills in the legislature, not only mine, that took 2 or 3 years to get them through. And people learn about them as it goes on.
Who are some of your allies in that particular effort?
Klan thing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't Osgood Williams was one of them, and I think Ellis Arnold was one. I forget when he was. See, some of these boys were in and out of the legislature, like
Yeah.
I was. They wasn't in steady,
Yeah.
but we'd pick up just various help. I'd have to go back and, well, some of them didn't have many names on the bill, but you'd have to go back and look at the recorded votes, on things, and I can't remember them all, but I could look at that list of voters who voted for this or that and then name them out. But it's
How about your opponents in all of that? Who are some of the people who opposed you on this measure?
Well, that's another hard thing for me to tell you. I'd have to look at the votes and give you the names, and I don't offhand remember. And some of the older conservative crowd, and like I say, for want of a better word, it was more the old Klan type crowd.
Where would, say, Roy Harris fit in and all of that?
Roy was more liberal than he was conservative. Getting changed that way over the years. As he took part in things and as he became speaker and all, he would then, as a speaker, Roy was lucky he didn't have to sign bills really unless he wanted to. He could put in whatever he wanted. And but he became more of a progressive fella right along, like Arnold did, like a lot of us hope we did.
Now, we're talking 40s, and of course, one of the...
Take Fred Hand, who was speaking
Yeah.
for a while, belonged to the old Talmadge crowd. And he wasn't no great progressive, but he learned stuff as he went along. I always liked him, Fred. He came from a rich family down there, and he didn't have to work if he didn't want to. And he got to be speaker there for a while. And he was more conservative than he was liberal.
It's interesting that you have, and a lot of other people have, personal friendships with people who they disagreed with politically. That seems to be a real characteristic of politics in this
Yeah,
state.
there was, you'd have to say there's some of that. You fellow be on the other side, but you just get friendly and like it.
Do you remember any particular people who you became good friends with but had political
Yeah.
differences with?
Offhand, it's hard for me to just offhand remember. Like I say, if I had a list of some years, I could tell you,
Okay.
but it ain't, it's don't, just hard to remember who was always friendly with you.
Right, and who were your political allies?
Yeah, and which one were politically, then was another way. You would get, a lot of you, you know it and be friendly with. Let me tell you something, people that come from a certain county, Tom Jones or Bill Smith from this little county here, or maybe a little bigger, elected in the legislature, and you might like him and he'd like you, but people in his county wasn't for this or that, and so you might be on different sides. He'd have to vote with, sometimes with his own people, depending on what he thought they were, or whatever happened, or what they told him. So you couldn't always be sure. A lot of friends would have different politics on different things.
At that time, in say the 40s, the earlier part of your career, who would you say would be the most able politicians that you can recall at that time?
In those days?
Yeah.
Well, Roy Harris was certainly one. Rivers was one. Arnold was one. And I don't have enough sense to be able to name them.
Okay, well, what made any of those men able, or what impressed you about Rivers or Arnold or Harris? What were their qualities that left the mark on you?
Two things. One was the fact that whether they had the same feeling, say, that I did about the politics and this issue, that issue, whatever it was. That was one thing. And the other is where they were from and what reasons they might join in on some fight that had to do with their area or their particular county or the statewide issue that would be before people, like various things.
Okay. What kind of such regional tensions were there that you can recall at that time? You know, 40s, early 50s, tensions between different regions, between rural areas and urban areas, or between different parts of the state?
Well, yes, some. I don't remember. I can't offhand say just what issue, but you would have at times, for instance, you'd have some issues between Atlanta and 1, 2, 3, 4 of the big cities and some of the rural people. Would be not necessarily personal issues, but by those people in those two areas thought their counties and areas were for, thought Atlanta and its people would be better off for. As one thing, and it was not just a personal thing. It depended on the issues and the places and all that. And the other reason that it'd be where people were more conservative, liberal in their feelings and what they were for or against in just a certain issue, regardless of the fact they were in the legislature or not, or whatever. It all depends on the individual, on the human being, and what made him more or less a liberal, or what was his county people for, or what they were against, or his area in the state, all those type of issues. You'd have rural issues in Georgia that some people were stronger for certain things in agriculture, or bills, or legislation, stuff like that, depending on where they were from and what they were interested in. You know how the cotton, over my time, when cotton finally came back some later on, and they controlled the bowl even better, but cotton was a big crop, and it gradually went away.
Sure.
Down in South Georgia where I lived, my early years, tobacco grew and grew and grew. Growing tobacco around, all it spread pretty well. It's still a pretty big crop down there. And the areas and things like that.
Who would you say were more or less your mentors in politics? People who showed you the ropes, or people who taught you the most?
Yeah, some people who taught me the ropes, I'd say, like Rivers, and then Well, Arnold and I came up about the same time, so, but I was fond of him, and he began to take issues and all when he began to run. And then some of the others were, both people in the legislature, and some folks in business that would take part in politics because they thought it was either good for that general type of business or whatever, depending on whether you knew them well or whoever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd always, in the legislature, try to take the politicians, get acquainted with them, and became friendly with them, and then they'd more or less, you'd get on, you and them would be on the same side, or be good friends regardless of whether you voted together or not. Just personal issues of personalities and things like that is what puts them together, makes them friendly, and the issues they get into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of particular people teaching you particular lessons or showing you the ropes?
Be whoever you like, and whoever will have to be a leader at that time, or whoever was in enough public to where you see them and hear and know something about them. Depending on what they were for and how that position they'd take on things, and whether they were believed like you did in things more liberal or more conservative, whichever it was. We've got a good legislature over there now, but it doesn't get in the same kind of knockdown drag out, at least we have in the last year or two. Still have differences that we had some years back between the two groups, and on different sides.
As you mentioned that, what are some of the big knockdown dragouts that you're talking about?
Oh, you mean back behind us?
Yeah.
Well, let's say the secret ballot thing and the Klan bill, and then some agricultural or city movements between people in certain localities, and things having to do with taxes would always get a big rattle about upping the tax a nickel here or there or whatever amount, and all that in financial conservatism, as well as spending money for things that you needed, even if you ran over your budget a little something or whatever you did. All that would depend on where they lived and what they were for and what they believed in, and what you get people involved in it one way or the other.
Now, I know this was ultimately settled by the courts, but I also know that in the early 50s there were some heated debates about malapportionment in the county unit system. And
yeah.
What do you recall about that? Of course, you were in a small county that in some sense benefited from the county unit system.
I did, my county did, but later on, my recollection, I got against the county unit system. I just finally realized that the damn thing, we ought to change it.
Okay.
And I've forgotten where the last time or two we had it up and voted, we had a lot of votes about it versus one thing and the other about it through those years. And I just don't offhand remember, except that my recollection was that I probably, when I felt like I could, based on where I was from Lanier County or what, whether I could vote doing away with it in some way. We had several general votes about having to do one way or the other that time.
I know Jamie Mackey has told me about
Jamie Mackey tell you about something.
Getting up in the House floor and talking about the county unit system and malapportionment.
Oh, he could get up and give a raised hell about it every day, because he was from a big county, DeKalb, that any change in it was bound to help DeKalb, but he felt that way too. He's one of those that just, his morals and his beliefs is more from a liberal side, something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a progressive kind of fellow, Jamie Mackey, and he believed in it, or raised in it, and like I say, and then coming from DeKalb County, it was a good place for him to take a lead in that kind of stuff.
What kind of
he's a good, fine fellow.
What kind of fallout would you get when you eventually did take a stand against the county unit system.
Oh, I'd have people down at the home in Lakeland and round about, and wherever it was, what years I was involved.
Yeah.
They'd say, "Oh, John, what in the hell you doing that for? You know it's wrong." And my recollection is, they'd say, "You trying to hurt the county?" I'd say, "No, damn it, in the long run it'll help us, because it opens up things for us. It's better to do it, but you could get into any kind of argument you wanted to about it down in a little county.
So you'd go home and people would really...
Some of them would give me hell. But I never got beat down there. I had 6 or 7 times I had good luck. Crossed my finger.
Now, I saw a reference, I'm just kind of moving us through time, I saw a reference where you made a bid for lieutenant governor in the 1950s. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
You
did I
thought-
run for lieutenant governor one year?
I'm running for lieutenant governor.
I think I did.
You don't remember?
Oh,
Are you
hell,
good?
I got to get
Yeah.
it back in my mind.
Okay.
I remember it way back in the 50s, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Somewhere back then. I forget who beat me.
I don't know. It's the year I think that Marvin Griffin became governor.
Maybe it was it? Yeah, Marvin and I were from the same old crowd, remember? Things had changed. But I don't know whether that was the year he got elected governor or not. Who beat me for lieutenant?
I'm not sure. I have to go back and
Well, I would
look
too.
about
I
that.
couldn't offhand, you know, you think I'm stupid. I couldn't
No.
just offhand tell you who was
Okay.
running it and all. But I remember running, but I didn't, I was from down there then, in my recollection, country.
That's right. You said Marvin and you were originally in the same old crowd?
Yeah, and then I forget, he didn't verge out as a more liberal or anything, maybe the other way, but we were in the same bunch, I think, that started. He belonged to the old rebels crowd.
Is that
way
right?
back.
So
My
he-
recollection is now.
He cut his political eye teeth.
Later on, yeah, he cut his political eye teeth then, my recollection. Yeah, I knew him way back in the old days.
I know he was, became adjutant general at some
Yeah,
point.
he became adjutant general under some governor. Who
I
was
think it was
Huh?
right around the time of the 3 governors
Yeah.
controversy.
Yeah, right about that time.
What do you remember about that?
Well, now wait a minute. I ought to remember all about it. Now, who was it? What was it?
Emmy Thompson.
Yeah, the M.E. Thompson.
And Herman
My
Talmadge.
friend Emmy and Herman and who was the other?
Maybe Carmichael or
Might have been Carmichael in that. Yeah, M.E. and Herman and
Jimmy Carmichael.
Carmichael, maybe. I was for M.E., my recollection. Because he was my neighbor there at Valdosta, and it was at that time. He lived somewhere else before. And I think he and I were on the same side.
Well, what do you recall about that? Certainly it's
Well,
one
I
of the more
just remember
colorful.
it was a knockdown drag out, if I can remember it right. Just that ain't giving you much information about it. But it got everybody all split up in various groups, you know, and those damn, who was, whatever and what the law was, there was some lawsuit involved in it somewhere back in there. I forget just how that ran, when. But it was a knockdown drag out too. Claiming he'd won or whatever it was.
Right. The write-in votes and
That's right. All of that stuff was involved. Ain't no doubt about it.
now you left the house also in the mid-50s, around 55 or thereabouts, and what caused you to leave the house before running again for the Senate? You ran for the Senate according to something I read in 59 and 60, but then there was a period of a few years where you had dropped out of the house, and then what had caused you to leave for those few years?
I don't think so. I think,
You think it was
that
continuous,
My
okay.
recollection is that offhand, I'd say the Senate was probably the last time I ran from Lanier County. And the Senate came on.
yeah.
I ain't swearing to that. It could have
I
been.
think that's right.
I could have been in the Senate and in the House.
No, I meant, but were you continuously in the House and then right away in the Senate, or was there a...
I think it was, I don't believe there was a gap in it. Now, I
Okay.
can't swear to that, I'd have to check my record,
I'll
but
check
my
my
record
record, too.
offhand was, and then after that, I moved up here,
Okay.
long in there.
Right, exactly. What made you decide to come up here, to move
My
up
children
here?
had all gone to college here. My daughter Gracie graduated at Agnes Scott. Bragg, my middle boy that owns this Banner Fulton County, he graduated at Tech, and the others, Buzz went to law school up here, my oldest son, who's a lawyer, and the other one went somewhere else up this way. But we finally just, the children began to want to live up here and get jobs. You know, there wasn't much in Lakeland. So they just, we just moved on up here. I was representing truck line, and I had to be up here at the Public Service Commission, beginning to get into that more and more, and I'd need to be here anyhow. And I'd leave home and be gone up here 3 or 4 days a week, out of bad. So we just moved it.
Okay. Now,
Excuse me a minute, let me ask Peggy if she's fixing to go. She's going to leave about.
then you were out of state legislature for about a decade or so.
Yeah, I was out for a while.
What prompted you to come on back?
Well, I'm trying to remember what caused me to. I was out several years, I think, and when I moved from there up here, and I didn't run up here and lose a race. I just didn't run for a while. Finally, I got in a race up here, and I believe it was a right hard race. And then I've been in, and I've had to run 6 times here, 7, whatever. I've had, at times I had no opposition, once, twice, or maybe about half the time. The other times I'd have opposition here. I've just had good luck here.
What made you decide to run again? I mean, to go back into the House?
After I got back up here, well,
Yeah.
I just liked it, and it was something I was interested in, politics and state government. And I just said, well, hell, I'm gonna give it another try.
Was it, how did it compare being a representative from an urban area as opposed to being represented from a rural area?
It no great difference except depending on the beliefs of the needs of the county where you are, the area where you're from. Up here, see, we get involved in all kind of local stuff that they need, don't need. It's more than a little bitty county sometimes, but other than that, it's they both got issues that they want. You've got to try to support them or be against whatever it is, you know. And like I say, it's I had more fights sometimes to get elected in Lakeland than I'd have up here in Fulton County. Because I think when I was in something here, and then I got when I ran and got pretty good publicity, it became easy to win after that here than a new fella just cranking off. In county, after you get in from this county, unless you mess up somewhere bad, hadn't been quite as bad to get reelected every time. Depends on certain issues maybe.
Okay. Of course, one issue that is an urban issue and a suburban issue that you are very closely associated with is MARTA.
Yeah, Marla. I got, I've been chairman of MARTA since pretty near the beginning. There was building, starting the railroad and all that back yonder. And I got involved in it. I forget why. Somebody was chairman of it just for me, and he left or something. And I've been chairman of MARTA for 7, 8, 9 years, I believe.
Yeah.
He and right in there. And I've got a good MARTA committee, and I get along with them. And I've worked hard at it. I spend practically more than that, but 2 days every week doing something, working. Well, every day I'm involved with MARTA. Got to do something this afternoon just before I leave, a call or two, and I went over to Capitol. Yesterday, there was a lot of stuff about MARTA. I was over there home. Of course, you see MARTA up here spreads all over a couple of counties. And we got not only the towns and the counties, but the routes and then the people and the various MARTA stuff. We got legislation coming up about how we're going, pushing on up toward Gwinnett County this year. Cobb says they don't want us, they want to meet us. They're going to run their own building, their own, and I don't know whether they can do that or not. And we're going to have they're going to want to come through into Fulton, and I ain't going to want to agree to that. I don't know whether I can block it, but we'll meet them at the county line. they talk about it, the people up in Cobb, some of them, they wanna run the bus or two on all the way into downtown. Well, my offhand thinking is that a lot of us here would not wanna agree to that on the ground that it'd cross in on Marta. We ought to just meet them in the county line if they wanna build that. But anyway, that's something you don't know what might happen.
Right.
But I've been tied up with Marta and got interested in it when, even before I became chairman, and after that, I've worked with them every single day. Something comes up, not troubles every day, but problems, things you need to do, and things you need to get worked out about various towns and cities, and how the stations, and routes, and schedules, and everything you think of. We haul over 300,000 people every day on Marta, on the trains and the buses. That's a lot of damn folks. And I think it's growing on us. I can tell it is. They think it is too. No, it is.
How did you get interested in Marta? Did you sort of offer yourself to get on the committee or be chairman, or were you appointed, or?
I've forgotten exactly, but I think that I was appointed by somebody on it to begin with, and have stayed on it, whatever they, and how it works ever since.
I know back in the, I guess it was the very early 70s, you were involved in getting through the sales tax, 1% sales tax to subsidize Marta passed the.
Yeah, we had to have, then we passed one for a 1% sales tax back
Yeah.
then, and we needed it bad for a lot of money. They said, we were all now about Marta needing some more money, but we ain't running behind like that. But some people talk about wanting to raise the fare, and my present feeling is I'm not in favor of raising the fare. I don't think people, that's 60 cents, I just don't think it ought to have to be raised. I want everybody that needs to ride it. And a lot of folks that ride it couldn't have a car if they wanted one. And whites and black. And they need to ride it. So I don't want to say I want to keep it low as we can, but I want to pick up what money we need here and there, federal or state and everything combined, you might say. And keep it going and expanding it where we need to. We need to get on up to Lanier County for headed that way.
Headed that way to Doraville.
Yeah.
How has the money raising for Marta fared since 1981, since the Reagan administration? What changes have there been in terms of federal subsidies for Marta?
We've had some problem with them about federal subsidies. Not too bad yet. Crossing my fingers, because we could have trouble with them. It's coming maybe next year, I don't know. But we've had pretty good luck with them so far. But the Reagan crowd has more or less been pulling down on a lot of stuff like that, other things. And but we've got to be able to have federal money to run Marta as well as whatever else we get. Because we've got to keep expanding and expanding it. Since we put in the rail Marta trains, they just wonderful. And I ride them now every day, back and forth, as well as the buses. And I like catch the train at Lanier. Martha brings me in there, or I can catch the bus up to Lanier and get on the train. And I noticed this morning I came in on it, the train was pretty damn full of people. I came in about 9. And Marta's, I don't know what this county and area would do if we didn't have it. They'd had the buses for a long time, you know, and then they gradually spread a little and grown, and then it got to where they just weren't intended doing enough, and finally we went into it and got the boat, whatever we had to do through the fight, and got Marta started building the rail line. And it's been a wonderful thing for this county, and this whole area. Like I say, it just hauls so damn many people, and it's great. It's really good. You ride it some?
Oh yeah.
Don't you like it?
Oh yeah.
It's good riding. It just zips on down where you
Sure.
want to go in a hurry.
Sure. Today I drove, but I would have ridden. I'll ride it tomorrow.
It's fine.
I know I saw somewhere that after the sales tax was passed through the House, George L. Smith honored you and he called you the gentleman from Lanier.
Something like that,
So,
yeah. Old George was a great friend of mine.
Was he the one who coined that phrase, the gentleman from Lanier? Or,
Well, I think so.
or he called you a freshman legislator, even though you had been in the House for all those years
Yeah,
before?
yeah, George was a good friend of mine. He was a great fella, fine fella. Well, they used to call, still do, say a fella from Jones County or Spalding County, they'll say a gentleman from Spalding, the gentleman from Spalding or Jones, whatever it is. But the gentleman from Lanier, he came up with that, used that around on him about that.
That was one of the things that you were known as, the gentleman from
Gentleman
Lanier.
from Lanier.
How, I know the other thing that sort of you're associated with is the red hat. And,
Yeah,
how did that
that's
come?
the straw hat. One I got not too long ago. I got a 4 or 5 felt reds at home and one old straw at home, but it's getting pretty old. I don't wear it. I finally found that one about a month or so ago, and about a month ago maybe. And Martha was with me. I went out and bought that red hat, and I like it. It's light. And if it was windy around you for a few days off and on, and dang, it would blow off if I didn't hold on to it. Like,
How did that become your trademark, the red hat?
well, it just got to be that way. I don't have one there. I got a picture there. I got a white hat, man. An old picture of my first wife and I, way back yonder. But I've got a picture at home that shows her with me and somebody and Martha, might have been the governor, and me holding the red hat up and having it. But I've worn a red hat for a long time, for the last 20 years, I think.
I know,
I did have some others, but I wear one now, and some as well as one. I've got several red felts that I found one years ago and liked it, and I've been around wearing them ever since. The funny thing, when I first bought that red hat, first thing I ever wore, still do sometimes, the ladies and the girls would look at it and say, I like that hat. The color is what it is, I think.
Well,
my ladies like to have colored clothes and all.
That's an incentive to keep on wearing
So
it,
I kept on wearing the hat. Yeah.
Now, I'll just ask a couple more questions because I think we'll probably have to go back and I'll have to go back over some of the stuff we talked about, maybe some other things I didn't get to. I know you were Ellis Arnold's campaign manager in 1966 when he ran for governor.
When he ran for governor.
Yeah.
Was I the manager then?
Well, that's what some newspaper accounts said.
Maybe I was. We had more than I was in it, wasn't by myself,
Yeah.
but I probably was at one time when he ran. Yeah, I was one of the managers anyhow.
What do you recall
Yeah.
about that campaign?
Well, it was, who was it we were against? Was it some of the Talmadge crowd at that time?
Lester Maddox.
Was it Lester that time? And we beat Lester, didn't he?
Well, Lester ended up being the governor.
That year?
66.
Maybe he did. Maybe Ellis had been governor.
Right,
And that year we didn't beat Lester.
right.
Well, why didn't we beat Lester? I remember now we didn't, and I'm trying to remember the reasons. Well, evidently Lester picked up all the other group together, and then we just couldn't overcome. I forget the issues, man,
Okay.
offhand.
Okay.
I remember Ellis won. I was with him generally when he was elected, and I've been in a lot of these races for and against people. It's hard for you to always remember exactly
Right,
about them.
right.
But I got to be friendly with Lester, and I've always liked him. He and I are very friendly man. He calls me Mr. John because I'm older, and I get tickled at him. Always has. But I like Lester, man. I saw him the other day.
How does the legislature now compare to when you came up way back? What kind of changes have you seen, or?
Well, I know a dumb answer. It doesn't seem to have changed a great deal, except for one way. I don't think there's as many of us in there that try to take hard and fast positions, maybe, as they used to be. And it may be because in those days, the earlier days, the legislature was more or less with two factions, like the old Rivers and Arnold, and the Talmadge crowd. And it's not that way now over there. And so I think the issues are done, we still pass, we hope, I hope, good legislation. And they watch it close over there, all the members do, and study it. but it's just not as much fighting between two groups as there used to be.
Yeah.
If you've been around it over there, you can see that it's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Where the Talmadges or the anti-Talmadges
Yeah,
doesn't.
That's right. It's just not that way. It hadn't developed into that. I don't mean it wouldn't. Maybe in a year or two or three, depends on. And then see, the governor is a quiet, fairly modest fellow. Joe Frankie is a nice, smart fellow, and he doesn't keep things stirred up. And he doesn't have a group. He's got a lot of support, but he doesn't have a crowd that are strong for him and a crowd that's strong against him. It's just that, not that
It's
way.
more complicated, you're saying.
That's right, and it's just not two big factions like they had been before.
Okay. Let's cut for now, and